least bit rude, but it's another description of the extent of the challenge. We have a political system where people can read any book, call any meeting, discuss any ideas, organise any march, and as it was actually an Iraqi engineer who lived here for years who said this to me, but the government doesn't take a blind bit of notice. And I mean, the level of disgruntlement in the country about politics and politicians, and the pre the expenses scandal, there was a level of contempt that's gone to a level of absolute anger, and then of course get rid of the government. And those of us who are around long enough remember a similar spirit at the time of the end of the Thatcher Major government. But the alternative government is virtually identical. And you notice the argument within the Labour Party, which has departed from its historical roots very significantly, New Labour, in my view, is, oh, the leader's not very popular, and let's get another leader. And nobody says, in order to do X and Y and change this and that, it's let's find another person that people might find more attractive. So yes, we've got an absolute crisis in our political system, and I think that's recognised. And I personally think that the fundamental reform we have to have is a voting system that reflects the votes of the public. I mean, after the Iraq War, in the 2005 election, New Labour got 35.2% of the vote on a low turnout, 22% of those eligible to vote. So that would have been a third of the Commons, a fifth of the people. Majority of 60-70, vindicated, carry on, absolute power, we can get anything through the House of Commons. We've got a voting system that just doesn't allow the opinions of the public to be reflected in the House of Commons, and I think that's the core problem, and I think it's a very serious problem, and there is now increased talk, even Gordon Brown, of a change in the voting system. I think this is the single most important change, that if out of this crisis we could achieve, we'd get a more responsive political system. Labour fought the 1997 election on a promise to look into a change to a proportional system of voting and to have a referendum on whether the country wanted it. And then they set up Roy Jenkins in a commission who recommended a system that's like what happens in Scotland now, or what the Germans have, which is a single-member constituency, which Britain's attached to, but with a regional top-up that makes the outcome proportional. Alternative vote plus top-up is because there's a million different proportional systems. And I think the push to have the referendum on that before the next election is the big issue. And if we got it, we'd get more of a pluralisation on the parties represented in the House of Commons. We'd get, I mean, the Lib Dems are massively underrepresented. You'd get some Greens in there. You might even get some BNP. And people have always said, we don't want a proportional system because we don't want them. And by the way, in the last elections, they didn't increase their vote at all. It was because the Labour vote went down that they came higher on the list and took those 2 European seats. Their actual vote did not go up, which is worth remembering, but UKIP took a considerable vote, as you say, and they were anti-Europe and anti-immigration, so they were playing in the same kind of field, not quite as nasty, but not very attractive. But it seems to me, if people are going with BNP ideas, better get them out, flush it out, see the poison, deal with it, rather than have a distorted electoral system that doesn't represent the country and isn't responsive to the people because we fear that an extremist voice might break through. And I think if they did break through, they could be exposed and humiliated because most of them have got pretty dreadful criminal records and love Adolf Hitler and all the rest of it. So I don't think you're rude. I agree with you. I've spent 26 years in the House of Commons. I'm leaving. It's a completely... It used to be, as Quinton Hogg said, an elective dictatorship. It's worse. The Commons is broken now. There's very little difference between the parties, so the public feel even more enraged. Even if they vote the government out, they get the same thing with another set of faces. And it's less and less reflective of the way people are voting. So I think it's one of the primary changes. We need to be angry. And then if you look at our ancestors, I mean, they didn't used to have the vote, and they campaigned and fought to get the vote for everybody, and that was a massive battle, and women had to starve themselves and go to prison. We need a bit of that back, that spirit. You're not rude in the slightest, I agree with you.